What is going on, everyone? Darkside Phil here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series, where you'll get maximum truth, minimum video editing, and of course minimum bullshit. I speak the truth. I'm not afraid to say honestly what I feel about games, and you'll find that a lot of the times it does not agree with what the mainstream media says, because I'm under no pressure to really review these games. I don't work for anyone in particular. I'm an independent contractor, so to speak. So today we're going to talk about a game that is an interesting hybrid, a combination of many different styles of gameplay, elements from different genres of gaming, and it's put together into an interesting combination. Now, for me, I'll be honest, personally, I think that there are a couple places where the game kind of falls flat and is a little stale, but I think overall the package is an enjoyable one. Unfortunately, from what I've been seeing in the mainstream gaming media, a lot of the media does not seem to think that is the case, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. But anyway, the game that we're talking about today is, of course, Archer: The Complete Season 2. It is Binary Domain. By Sega, by the way. And Binary Domain, what it attempts to do is take the third-person shooter genre of gaming, so, you know, the Gears of War style gameplay, and integrate it with several different pieces from other genres to make an interesting combination. So let me explain. At its core, Binary Domain is a third-person shooter. Just like Gears of War, you're going to run and take cover behind objects, you're going to peek over the cover and shoot, you're going to have different guns like a machine gun, a shotgun, a sniper rifle. Over the course of the game, you'll get different grenades, you'll get different special abilities, like you'll be able to charge up your rifle and shoot a powerful attack. Basic third-person shooter gameplay at its face, you know, the first thing that you see, it seems like, wow, this could be a Gears of War 3 clone. I don't know how I feel about this game. But shortly after jumping into Binary Domain, you find that there's a lot of unique elements to it that have been implemented that make it stand out from the pack, and it really is a different animal than just a Gears of War clone. So, first of all, the story of Binary Domain, let me tell you. Starts off slow, starts off like it might be a little bit cheesy, actually gets exceptional during the course of the game, to the point where at the end you feel like you just watched a really cool sci-fi thriller movie and you're like, wow, I wonder what's going to happen next. The primary plot of Binary Domain is that somewhere, it is the future, it's like 2080 or something like that, the near future, and robots and cybernetics are now commonplace amongst the world. And there was a natural disaster where the planet flooded, so all the cities were rebuilt above the previous cities, okay, suspended over this flood. And so what ends up happening is, all of a sudden these sleeper agents, they're called hollow children, start waking up, and what they are robots, cyborgs, who look human, they're covered in flesh, but they don't know that they're robots, and they start figuring this out, and so there's a big public outcry. What the hell's going on? No one had known that these robots existed. In fact, there was a Geneva Convention passed that basically said, in the world you cannot make cyborgs, you cannot make robots that look like humans. And over the course of the game, what ends up happening is you are Dan Marshall, who is a part of an elite squad called the Rust Crew, who are a crew of international special ops that are sent in during robot crises such as these. So because it's suspected that these hollow children are being made by a Japanese corporation, the premise of the game is that Dan Marshall and his partner Bo are sent in by the United States into Japan to infiltrate the Amada Corporation, who is under suspicion of creating these hollow children and putting them as sleeper agents all throughout the world. For what purpose is not known, what's going to really be the intent is not known, but you're basically being sent to shut down this corporation. And so you start out the game as a two-man unit trying to infiltrate this Japanese corporation. Over the course of the game, you run into several new allies, such as other international members of this Rust Crew, such as two members from the British squad, a member of the French squad, a member of the Chinese division of the squad. And so it's interesting because you get a kind of a wide variety of characters of all different unique personalities. Now, where I can't say Binary Domain for some reason, I say Binary Domain is unique because unlike other third-person shooters, and I'm going to probably make 100 comparisons to Gears of War in this review, but it allows you to make choices, interesting choices. For example, there are times during the game when you'll be a team of 5 and the game will say, well, pick which 3 characters you actually want to play with during this portion of the game. Do you want to play with the demolitions expert who has a rocket launcher and a shotgun? Do you want to play with the character who has a sniper rifle? And you can actually command your squad to take different roles during combat and use it to your advantage depending on who you've put into your squad. As you play the game, you accumulate credits, which can now be used to go to vendor booths, which are all throughout the game, to buy ammo, to buy health packs, and that's right, unlike most other third-person shooter games, this game actually requires you to pick up health packs and heal yourself and your allies when you are down. You don't just regenerate your health infinitely like a lot of these other games. And so you have to buy health packs, ammo, weapons, and upgrades. Unlike other third-person shooters, this game has some role-playing game elements to it, and so one of those elements is that you get to choose upgrades for your characters, whether it's I want to do a defense boost, I want to do a health increase boost, I want to do more accuracy with my weapons. You have the ability to buy these enhancers and equip them to each one of your characters during the course of the game, which is really neat, and it gives it some variety. You can make one character that's really defensive like a tank and always send them in first ahead of everyone, or you can make someone who has a super high accuracy and they hang back with the sniper rifle and just blow people away. So it's really cool that during the course of the game you get to customize your characters, unlike a lot of these other games, again, like Gears of War, where what it is, and you're just going to have to put up with it. And every character is really kind of similar and generic. In this game, every character is really unique. Now later on in the game, you run into other groups that are against this Armada corporation that you're trying to take down, including resistance groups in Japan, who are against the current government there, a police officer who ends up going rogue, and it's pretty cool. You get unique characters who you get to equip and de-equip and put on your party and take off your party at different parts of the game. Another really cool aspect is dialogue options. That's right, this game actually has dialogue options similar to a game like Mass Effect, where you can say different things in different situations. Now, if you say the right thing, what will happen is you'll build what they call trust in your teammates. And trust helps for a couple of different ways. Number one, the more trust that a teammate has in you, the better chance that when you tell them to do something in a combat situation that they're actually going to do it, okay? Now, if a character really hates you and you tell them, hey, go run in first, charge in ahead of us, it's probably going to say, fuck you, and they're going to do whatever they want. But someone with maximum trust will always obey your commands. Also, there's actually achievements and trophies for getting maximum trust out of different characters, so it's worth your while to try to get the trust up and give the right answers to a lot of the questions in the game. There's also unique opportunities where there are dialogue options in the game where you can say different things, and it's cool to see the different dialogues play out depending on what you choose, okay? The game is about, I'd say, just under 9 hours long for a campaign. The story is absolutely outstanding with many twists, many turns, a lot of interesting things in it that I found were, again, of the caliber of watching a really high-end sci-fi thriller movie or reading a really good book. I mean, it really is a great story, and the voice acting's done pretty well. The characters are all varied and interesting, and you get to know them and care about them over the course of the game. And the story's done really well, let's put it that way. You're going to want to play to the end of Binary Domain to see what's going on, because you're always going to be guessing. The gameplay is hit or miss. I would probably say about 75 to 80% of the time the gameplay is pretty fun. 20% of the time it could be a little bit frustrating depending on what's happening. And what I mean is there are some situations in the game where you're not sure exactly what to do. Maybe you're fighting a particular boss and you really have no idea if you're doing the right thing against this boss or not, because they don't have health bars. So it's really, gee, am I hurting it? Am I not hurting it? What you really have to do is just keep fucking shooting it until finally you notice something change. Maybe the boss's combat pattern changes. Maybe the boss's armor falls off. You're like, okay, well now I know I'm doing something right. So that is one thing that I feel that was a little bit confusing about the game. There are some repetitive stretches in the game where you're going to be fighting the same type of enemies over and over and over. However, what I did find is the further you get into the game, there is a wide variety of enemies in the game, including generic robots, military robots, robots that are snipers, robots that are more melee, and they run straight up to you and you have to try to stop them, you know, before they can get to you. Flying robots, transport robots that pick up ground robots and fly them in the air, and you have to destroy the transport robots to get them to drop the other robot. There are I forget exactly what they're called, but there's robots that have lasers that if they see movement, they detect you and they send in other robots to attack you. So there's a wide variety of, there's ninja robots in the game. I totally forgot about that. Later on in the game, ninja robots that looks like bugs, robots that are just crazy. So a wide variety of robots in the game, as long as you can put up with maybe a little bit of the slowness of the first couple hours of the game, and you really start getting into the variety of the battles later on in the game, the different locations you're fighting. One of the things I think the game excels at are the boss battles. There are several large-scale boss battles in the game that are just gigantic robots. You're like, shit, what do I fire at? And then all of a sudden you'll hear your teammate say, let's try for the legs. So all of a sudden you pick up the rocket launcher, start shooting the legs, and you notice it's having an effect on the boss. And there's several bosses like that. Probably I'd say there are maybe 10 major bosses in the game, and then a couple mini bosses or more minor bosses. So it keeps it interesting. And even during the game, the goals and things, it's not always just getting from point A to point B. It might be, go destroy this satellite dish, or try to escape from this trap that was sprung, and all kinds of different stuff that you're doing during the course of the game, which I found really interesting and neat. The graphics are pretty impressive. The graphics are very detailed. The frame rate, I noticed, never really went into the toilet or anything like that. It was always a pretty high frame rate, which is great for a very action-oriented game like Binary Domain as it is. Now really, there is one element of this game that I find fails miserably. It tries really hard, and it just doesn't execute well. And this is just in my personal experience. I don't know if it's different for anyone else, but there is an element in this game, as you remember I mentioned you can command your squad to do things during the course of the game. Well, the game has voice recognition, okay? And it uses a microphone, which could be the Xbox Live headset like this, or it could be the mic on your Microsoft Kinect. It could be any kind of a microphone. And what it lets you do is give it commands. So maybe you're fighting, say, charge, and so your teammate will go, what, charge? Okay, and they'll charge into the fray. This is very similar to what apparently is going to be attempted next week with the release of Mass Effect 3 using the Microsoft Kinect microphone, okay? Unfortunately, what I found is that when I did it with the Microsoft Kinect microphone for the Mass Effect 3 demo, it worked about 80% of the time. Here, it barely works, okay? Every time you try to tell it to do something, it thinks you're saying something else. And the problem, I think, is that there's too wide of a range of commands that it supposedly recognizes. Like, it'll recognize thanks, stupid, no, yes, sure, okay, attack, charge, fall back, defend. Like, there's like 40, 50 words that the thing recognizes, and so it always thinks you're saying something else than what you're really trying to say. And I tried both my Microsoft Kinect microphone and just this regular Xbox 360 standard, wireless headset, and neither of them really worked. What would end up happening is, if it was super quiet, like there was nothing going on, and I would say, like there was a dialogue option going on, I could say something like I say, okay, yeah, and it would work. But if there was a firefight, if we were in the middle of a fight, every time I tried to give commands, it wouldn't work properly. What would happen is, it would pick up the noise from the stereo system, from everything going on, and it would inadvertently, repeatedly say things that I wasn't saying. Like, there would be times when I was just walking and there would maybe ambient noise going on, like there's a storm, so there's rain coming down, and my teammate would say, what? What'd you say? Not now. It's not appropriate to talk about that now. And I'd be like, I'm not saying a fucking word. I'm sitting here completely silent, and the game constantly thinks I'm saying words to it, okay? Now, since neither of those voice options worked, I decided to deactivate the voice function, in which case what happens is, if you want to tell your commando, or your commandos, your squad what to do, you can hold down left bumper, and then you can give them commands. Unfortunately, sometimes even that is hit or miss. I remember there's a particular fight where my teammate was supposed to be reloading a gun for me, okay? And what would happen is I would try to distract this boss we were fighting while my teammate went to reload the gun. The teammate would end up getting hit, getting distracted, running around, and not doing what I told it, and therefore it was extremely hard to beat this boss because I ended up having to manually reload the gun myself, which I wasn't supposed to have to do. Which basically lends itself to the fact that this game does have online co-op, and so probably in those situations the game is thinking, gee, maybe if there's a human, the human's not going to fuck up, the human's going to know what to do, but unfortunately the computer AI does seem to make mistakes. Speaking to the computer AI and the mistakes it makes, it frequently does stupid stuff. Like, Ridiculous. There'll be 10 robots right in front of you. You'll pull out your biggest and baddest weapon. You'll start to fire and go nuts on them. Your teammate will walk right in front of your line of fire and get shot in the back. And the reason that this is bad in this game is multiple reasons. Number one, in the campaign, friendly fire is activated, so you could hurt your teammate by accident. Number two, the teammates actually lose trust in you if you shoot them. So remember, as I was saying, you can build up trust and they'll listen to you, and you can possibly get achievements or trophies for building up to maximum trust. Well, they'll just walk in front of you, you'll shoot them by accident, not your fault, you're already firing, and then you'll lose trust in them, or they'll lose trust in you. And it's like, how the fuck is this my fault? That's a really annoying mechanic of the game, okay? And similarly to that, there are many fights in the game where you would hope that the computer kind of at least has a fucking idea what it should be doing, and unfortunately it just doesn't, and it does stupid stuff. So there'll be boss fights where your teammates will be completely useless. They'll be like, shoot the weak point. They won't shoot the weak point, they'll be shooting up the sky, they'll be running in circles, they'll be fighting the little dudes on the side. They won't do what they're supposed to be doing to fight the boss, and you'll be soloing the boss a lot of the time. So that's really my two major gripes with the game. Number one, that they had this whole idea that they were going to do voice recognition, but I can't get the fucking voice recognition to work, and I don't know what to do. Like I said, I tried a standard headset, and I tried my Kinect, and neither seemed to work. And then the fact that the AI just seems to be really fucking stupid in a lot of places. I wish that the AI, I wish that the AI would have been programmed better. I think it would have made an overall better game. That being said, there really aren't that many parts of the game that are so overwhelmingly challenging that you're going to redo them 100 times because the AI isn't really helping you. You can pretty much figure out what to do and beat these bosses and things after a couple tries, which isn't so bad. Now, the other element about Binary Domain is the online play, okay? And I would love to go into huge detail about the online play and tell you all about it, but there's a problem. I tried to play the online play immediately after I beat this game. I beat this game around 9 o'clock on Thursday. And keep in mind the game came out on Tuesday, so we're only 2 days into its release. 9 p.m. on Thursday. The only games that could be found in the matchmaking were team deathmatch games. So I played a couple of those. Okay, I got the feel for it. It's the typical, you pick a loadout, you can unlock different items as you play because you earn credits, you can earn health packs and different upgrades, maybe an extra grenade or a more powerful grenade, etc. And you run around shooting people with your team, and you know, just like Gears of War 3, it's similar gameplay to something like that. And, you know, it's team-based, there's 3 rounds, and you go back and forth until one team eventually wins, just like Gears of War. But, when I tried to play any other game mode, the game literally told me no games found. Now, here's how many game modes there are. Free-for-all, Team Deathmatch, Team Survivor, Demolition, Operations, and I think there's even 1 or 2 more. So there's like 8 game modes available in the game. The only game mode that I could find games in was Team Deathmatch. It seems no one else is playing this game in any other mode, almost to the point where probably what I'm assuming is a lot of people are playing the campaign of the game and really don't give a shit about the multiplayer, so no one's really playing it. Now again, this is only in my experience, but you know, I played the game and I wanted to play the multiplayer and there's no one playing it. That's something negative to be said. When I played Gears of War, immediately people were playing that game online. Okay? So, overall, I think Binary Domain is an interesting experiment. It's an attempt to take elements of other genres of gaming and integrate them into a third-person shooter game and make it a really interesting package. And I think on some levels, which would be the fact that, you know, you can equip your characters with unique items, you can choose what characters are in your party, the different branching dialogue options that happen in the game, the very, very interesting and twist-filled, turn-filled story that develops over the course of the game, the fact that, by the way, you can actually make love in this game. Just like in Mass Effect, this is kind of similar to Mass Effect, where if you play your cards right, you can maybe do the nasty with a couple of the characters in the game. You can do that in Binary Domain, at least with one I know, because I did it with one character in my playthrough. I don't know if you can do it with multiple, but that's pretty cool to have that kind of control and that kind of level of complexity in the game, just like Mass Effect. It's basically taking Mass Effect and taking out a lot of the heavy RPG elements of it and making it a more action-based game. That's pretty much what Binary Domain is. So, again, the story, The RPG elements are done really well. The boss fights are usually done really, really well and are epic in scale. The combat itself, after the first few hours, stops being as repetitive and becomes a little bit more interesting. The characters and the character development, the interesting stories of each of the characters, the voice acting really is interesting, and I think they do a really good job on those things. But I think where the game falls flat is the voice command attempts that don't work, the shoddy AI of your team, and just the fact that really, I guess, no one's interested in the multiplayer. That is a detriment to the game. So overall, Binary Domain, everything considered, I'll tell you right now, I enjoyed it. I really do think, I think that this is an IP that if given a chance, meaning if it gets a chance to get a sequel and they take out some of the weird things like that voice commands, because I don't think it needs that, and instead they make better AI in the game and they make it easier to command your squad manually during a fight, I think this game could be exceptional. But right now, those things are big detriments to it. And even so, even if those weren't problems, I still think that it is technically at its core still a third-person shooter. It can only go so far. So I'm going to give Binary Domain, on my scale, and keep in mind, my scale is very strict. When I say it's a certain number, it usually is in scale. So I'm going to give Binary Domain a 7.5, but let me explain this. There's an asterisk next to it. A Binary Domain is a 7.5 with an asterisk because it is a really good game. I just feel that there are games that already have blown me away this year, like The Darkness 2 with an outstanding story, an amazing variety of gameplay all the way up to the end of the game. And I think that game was probably one of my favorite games so far this year. I don't think this game lived up to that level. And so it's a good game. In fact, it's a great game. I think it's definitely worth a rental and even maybe a purchase because of its length. And I think people should give it a chance. I see a lot of critics out there are giving the game like 70s, 60s, or 7 or 6 out of 10, saying that, oh, the AI sucks, the game's repetitive, it's too much of a copycat lifting stuff from other games. True, but I think that the combination is unique and interesting and fun when it does that. So when I give it a 7.5, that's not a bad score. That means this is a great game. It's just not a Game of the Year contender, but I think it's a good start for a new IP. I think that, again, if they fix those kind of minor issues that are annoying, that the game could be better. And also, I wish that people would give the multiplayer a chance, but it looks like right now no one's really playing it, which is a detriment to the game, and unfortunately that is a negative on the score because you want more replayability out of the game, and really when only one game mode's being played, you can only do so much with it. So, alright, so that's it for the Hateful Truth on Binary Domain. A fun game, worth a playthrough, definitely, and you can check out the online play, although it's probably going to be very limited if you do. An interesting attempt. I hope that there's a sequel and they do better and they just improve upon the couple things that were annoying about the game. Okay, so that's it for this Hateful Truth video game review. I hope you found it informative, and I hope it helps you make up your mind on this game, whether or not you want to check it out. Again, maximum truth, minimum bullshit, minimum video editing. So that's it, and I'll see you next time for the Hateful Truth. Thanks.